I'm 89 years old this year. When people find out I live alone in this old two-story house in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, they often look at me with eyes full of worry mixed with pity. They think I must be terrified, scared of falling and breaking a bone on the stairs, scared of illness suddenly striking, scared that one day I'll pass away with no one by my side to wipe away the tears. Oh my God, those fears have never kept me up at night. My real fear lies much deeper. It quietly gnaws at my chest every night. I fear that I'll live but no longer be myself, still thinking, still feeling, still remembering every memory clearly but turned into a soulless shadow in my own life. And the difference between these two fears is very important, because once you understand it, you'll see everything in a completely different way. My name is Margaret Henderson, but people usually call me Maggie. I've lived a long, long life. I was once the wife of Frank, the kindest man I ever knew, the mother of 3 children, and now the grandmother of 4 grandchildren. Frank passed away 20 years ago after a sudden heart attack. I buried him, then buried that pain by continuing to live. This house, with its old cream-colored walls and creaky wooden floors, is all that's left of us. Every corner of every room carries a story. The old armchair in the living room is where Frank used to sit reading the newspaper in the mornings. The kitchen is where I taught the kids to make raisin cookies during those snowy winters. I don't want to leave it, even though it's too big and too quiet now. My children worry, of course. They've grown up and have their own families, but they still look at me like I'm a child who needs protecting. Rebecca, my oldest daughter, calls more often than before. Her voice is always gentle, but I know exactly what's behind it. Mom, I want to talk seriously for a minute. I know right away. The following weekend, Rebecca and her husband David drive in from the city. They sit around the kitchen table, drinking the coffee I made, and start talking about the options. Oh Lord, the word options they use sounds so sweet, but I know it doesn't really mean I get to choose. They suggested 3 ways. I could move in with them in their spacious suburban house, or stay in my own home but hire a caregiver to come every day, or consider those senior communities where staff is on duty around the clock, completely safe. Rebecca said it all so kindly, her eyes shining with tears, not because she was afraid of me, but because she was afraid for my future. I didn't want to make her sad, so I nodded and said I'd think about it. I thought about it for a long time, because at my age, every decision feels heavy. I've learned that rushing only brings regret. In the end, I agreed to try living with Rebecca for a while to see how it went. Her house was really cozy. The grandkids ran around everywhere, laughter echoing. There were beautiful moments, like when my youngest grandson crawled into my lap, hugged me tight, and told me about school. I missed that feeling so much. The feeling of being trusted unconditionally. But gradually, everything started to change. Dinner wasn't on the schedule I was used to anymore. In the mornings, I liked to wake up slowly, sip hot tea and look out the window, but their house was bustling from early on. No one forced me to follow along, but I could feel myself trying to fit into a rhythm that wasn't mine. I became a respected guest, but a guest never really belongs there. I started weighing every word I said, every action I took, afraid I'd be a bother. One morning, I stood in the hallway and overheard them whispering in the kitchen about the schedule for dropping off the grandkids, about who would stay home with me when they went to work. It wasn't criticism, but I knew I'd become something that needed arranging. My heart tightened. It wasn't anger, just a quiet sadness. I stayed there for 3 weeks, long enough to realize this wasn't where I belonged. I told Rebecca I wanted to try the second option, hiring a caregiver to come to my house. She agreed, though I saw the worry in her eyes. The woman named Mrs. Thompson came and did her job very professionally. She cleaned neatly, cooked well, reminded me to take my medicine on time. On paper, it was perfect, but in reality, it was completely different. My house now had a stranger moving around in it all day. The kitchen that used to be my private space, where I cried alone after Frank passed, now had someone else arranging the dishes her own way. I felt like I was being separated from myself. I became Mrs. Henderson in that formal way, instead of Maggie, the woman who had lived here for nearly 6 decades. Money was an issue too. The cost was sky high, and I didn't want to keep depending on Rebecca forever. One evening, I sat alone going over the books, calculating like Frank and I used to do when we were raising the kids. I realized this couldn't go on. I didn't want to become a burden on anyone, so I decided to let Mrs. Thompson go. My heart felt heavy, but I knew I had to do it. Now only the third option was left. Rebecca gently suggested I visit a senior community called Evergreen Senior Living, about 20 miles from my house. I agreed, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to check it out for myself. The place was clean and bright, the staff friendly. They showed me a small room with a window overlooking a green garden. The schedule was printed out in detail. Morning exercise, group meals, social time, rest time. Everything was perfectly arranged. But standing there, I felt clearly that my life was being replaced by a schedule someone else had drawn up. I had spent nearly 9 decades deciding each day for myself. When to wake up, what to eat, what to do in the afternoon. Those small choices were the thread connecting me to myself. Here, even with good intentions, everything was gently controlled. I smiled politely throughout the visit, but inside I whispered, "Not yet." On the drive home, I looked out the car window, the chilly Ohio wind blowing past. I wondered if safety and convenience were worth giving up being myself. Have you ever wondered the same thing? When I got home, I decided to stay. No big plan, no support system at all, just me and this old house. My daughter was more worried than ever, but I stood firm. The first few days were really hard. There were mornings when my body ached, reminding me that age doesn't forgive. I once fell lightly in the bathroom, lay there a few minutes staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding, but I managed to get up. Life wasn't easier, but it was still mine. That was the most important thing. I learned the lesson that no matter how much your children love you, don't rush to hand over your right to decide to someone else. Keep your own space, your own rhythm, even if it looks messy to outsiders. Because when you lose that, you lose a part of your soul. I still sit by the window every afternoon, watching the sunlight fade on the maple trees. And then, one ordinary afternoon, everything started to change in a way I never expected. I went outside to get the mail as usual, walking slowly because my knees get sore now. A few steps away, a young woman named Laura was struggling with her old car. She had just moved into the house next door a few weeks earlier, raising 2 kids on her own. Her little boy, Timmy, 4 years old, was crying loudly because he was tired, and her 8-year-old daughter, Emily, was trying to comfort him. Laura looked exhausted, holding heavy grocery bags. I recognized that look right away, the look of someone carrying too much all by herself. I did the simplest thing I could think of. "Do you need any help?" I asked, my voice hoarse from old age. Laura looked up, surprised, but then smiled tiredly. I held Timmy for a while, told the little boy an old story about the dog I used to have back in 1960 when Frank and I had just gotten married. The boy stopped crying right away, his eyes wide. It was only a few minutes, but enough for Laura to get sorted. We didn't say anything big, just a small moment of help. But from then on, a natural rhythm started to form. A few days later, Laura knocked on my door in the morning. Timmy had a slight fever, and she had to take Emily to school. "Could you watch him for an hour?" she asked. Of course I could. 1 hour became 2 hours, 2 hours became the whole afternoon. Timmy sat in my kitchen, drawing all over the place with colored pencils, laughing loudly when I made silly monster faces. I didn't expect to miss the sound of children's laughter so much. Laura started helping me in return. She brought me heavy groceries, fixed the wobbly chair on the porch without complaining. We didn't call it helping, just neighbors needing each other. Our conversations grew deeper. Laura told me about her money worries, about being a single mom after her ex-husband left. I told her about Frank, about the hard years in the 70s when the economy was bad, about how he and I still held hands through it all. Not made up stories, but real ones, with tears and laughter too. I started to feel alive again. Not younger, just real Maggie. Rebecca came to visit and noticed right away. "Mom, you look so much better," she said, her voice relieved. I realized one thing: human connection doesn't need schedules or contracts. It starts from small things like holding a crying child or carrying a bag. And if you're afraid of living alone in old age, I understand completely. But before you give up your house, your own rhythm, try opening your heart to the world around you. Don't make it complicated. Just start with a smile or a simple question. You'll be surprised by what life brings. Have you ever wondered if real connection is stronger than any care system? I believe it is, and I'm living proof of it every day. The hard days are still there, but now I'm not alone in my own house anymore. The sound of little footsteps on the porch, the familiar knock at the door, the children's voices calling Mrs. Maggie, all of it makes me smile. Life goes on, and I'm still myself. And life just kept flowing like that, with children's laughter mixed with familiar footsteps that warmed my heart in the strangest way. Laura and I gradually became each other's support in a way neither of us could have predicted. She often brought over leftovers from her dinner, like simple vegetable stew that she learned from her mom back in Pennsylvania. I would sit with Timmy on the porch every afternoon, telling the boys stories about those hot summers on the Ohio farm back in the 1940s, when horse-drawn wagons were still the main way to get around, and we ran around in the cornfields without a worry except catching frogs. The boy listened carefully, holding a cup of hot milk, his eyes lighting up when I told him about Rusty, the dog I used to have, the one that liked to lick my face every morning. "Mrs. Maggie, did Rusty ever bite people?" the boy asked innocently. I chuckled. "No, he only liked to lick faces just like you do now." Oh my God, at my age, it's fun just hearing questions like that. Those moments made me forget the fear I had at first, forget that my body was getting weaker every day. Emily was different. The 8-year-old girl would sit with me in the kitchen after school, helping me pick vegetables and asking questions way deeper than her age. "Mrs. Maggie, do you have any regrets in your life?" I thought for a moment, sipping my hot tea, then told her about the time Frank and I had a big fight over money back in the 1960s, when the economy was bad and we almost lost the house. But then we forgave each other. Life is like that. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad. The important thing is knowing how to hold on to what's left. Laura also started sharing her real struggles with me. Her office job in downtown Cleveland wasn't stable, the pay was barely enough, and sometimes her ex-husband would call and stress her out badly. I listened and told her, "Don't let the past drag you down, dear. Focusing on your 2 kids is enough." This old lady here still has the strength to lend a hand. We helped each other in a natural way. No schedule, no contract, just neighbors needing each other. I started to feel like I wasn't a burden anymore, but part of a story that was still unfolding. But life never stays still. One chilly fall afternoon, while I was trying to sweep the yellow leaves in the backyard, my knees suddenly gave out. I fell hard onto the cold concrete, luckily without breaking any bones but aching all over, unable to get up. Laura happened to see from her window, ran over right away, her face pale. She helped me inside, cleaned the wound, made hot tea, and stayed with me the whole evening. "Mrs. Maggie, you have to be more careful," she said, her voice shaking with worry. I smiled weakly. "Oh heavens, that's what old age is like, dear. Don't worry, I'm fine. Damn it, this old body likes to play tricks too much." But from then on, I started to feel my own fragility more clearly. In the days after, I got more tired. My arms and legs ached whenever the weather changed, and Laura had to help more carrying heavy groceries, cleaning the porch without a single complaint. I was so grateful to her I couldn't put it into words. but deep down, I still wondered if I was becoming a burden to her. Then Rebecca found out. She came for an unexpected visit a week later, her eyes red from worry. "Mom, I heard everything from Laura. You can't keep going on like this." That fall was a warning. "I've talked to the doctor. They recommend considering a more professional place." Her voice was firm but full of tears. David stood beside her, nodding in agreement. I looked at them, my heart tightening. The pressure from the family started to build. They called every day, sent brochures for Evergreen Senior Living, even offered to pay for 3 months upfront to try it. "Mom, safety comes first," Rebecca said. I felt the tension rising. Every night I lay awake, thinking about those same old options. I didn't want to make her sad, but I also didn't want to lose myself. My relationship with Laura and the kids was saving me from real loneliness, but now everything seemed threatened. The tension kept building. Winter came early, snow falling thick outside the window. One late night, I woke up with sharp chest pain, my heart pounding like it was about to burst. I tried to sit up, but my hands were shaking, and I couldn't reach the phone on the nightstand. The real fear hit not fear of dying, but fear of lying there alone with no one knowing, just like people always warn about. I tried to call out, but my voice was hoarse. Only a weak groan came out. Luckily, Laura was home because of her late shift that night. She heard the strange noise through the thin wall between our houses, ran over right away with the spare key I'd given her. "Mrs. Maggie, Mrs. Maggie," she shouted, her face drained of color. She called for an ambulance, held my hand the whole time we waited, whispering words of encouragement. "You have to be strong, okay? We still have so many stories to tell each other." At Cleveland Clinic, the doctor diagnosed me with mild chest pain from stress and old age, needing complete rest and close monitoring. Rebecca flew in that same night, sat by my hospital bed gripping my hand tight. "Mom, that's enough. I can't let you live alone anymore. We're moving you to Evergreen this week. They have doctors on duty 24/7, completely safe." Her voice was shaky but determined. David stood nearby nodding. Laura was there too, her eyes red from worry. This was the climax, the biggest conflict I'd ever faced. I looked around the stark white hospital room, heard the beeping monitors, and felt clearly that if I gave in now, I would lose everything I'd built. "Rebecca, my love," I said, my voice hoarse but firm. "I know you're worried about me, but I've lived 89 years. I don't want to become a patient in a place where everything is planned from morning to night. I've found with Laura and the kids something that a nursing home can't give me: real, genuine connection, not schedules or contracts." She sobbed. "But Mom, what if you fall next time and Laura isn't home? You could die. I couldn't stand losing you that way." I pulled her into my arms, my own tears falling onto the hospital pillow. "I understand, dear. I'm scared too. But I choose to live, not just exist safely in a cage. We can find another way, install cameras, have Laura stay a few nights when needed, and I'll still help watch the kids when she goes to work. I don't want to lose myself just because of fear." Laura stood beside us, her voice trembling. "I'm ready to help, Mrs. Maggie. We need each other." The air was tense. Rebecca stayed silent for a long time, looking at me, looking at Laura, then nodded reluctantly. "If Mom promises to call me right away, if there's any problem, and we check your health every week." I squeezed her hand. "I promise, my love." "Oh Lord, thank you for understanding." After that climax, everything started to calm down. I was discharged after 3 days, back to my old 2-story house in Cleveland, with a strange sense of relief. Rebecca and David installed smart cameras, arranged regular checkups, but they didn't push me to move anymore. Laura started helping me a bit more. She stayed at my house a few nights when the weather was bad, cooked with me, and together we fixed up the porch to make it warmer with old wind barriers. Timmy and Emily treated me like a real second grandma. I taught them to make raisin cookies using the recipe Frank used to love, told them stories about those trips to the Michigan beaches in the 70s when my kids were little. My health stabilized thanks to the diet Laura reminded me about and the gentle exercises I did in the armchair. There were no more awkward silences, only laughter and warm presence. I realized something profound. In old age, safety and convenience aren't everything. Human connection, even if it starts from carrying a bag or watching kids for an afternoon, is what keeps us being ourselves. Don't rush to hand your life over to ready-made systems, no matter how good they are. Open your heart, allow yourself to need help and to help others. Have you ever wondered if helping a stranger sometimes saves your own life? Or that old age doesn't have to trade freedom just for fake safety? And if you're at an age like mine, do you dare try a different path? Now, I still live in that old two-story house, still eat dinner whenever I want, still sit by the window watching the snow fall on the maple trees. Sometimes I hear little footsteps running in, the familiar knock at the door, children's voices calling Mrs. Maggie. Can you tell us about Rusty today? And I smile, knowing that it's enough. In the end, it really is enough. I'm still Maggie, still myself, and life may not be perfect, but it's still mine. What do you think about my story? Please comment below and share your thoughts, like if you think it's good, and subscribe so you don't miss other real stories.